All right, folks, welcome back to another edition of the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast. That's just me and Paul here right now. Paul, how we doing?
Doing good, man. Glad to be back in the current events section. We haven't had one of these the last couple episodes. Totally my fault. I'm here now, ready to be part of it.
Good deal. Got a lot to catch up on. I mean, you and I haven't really talked that much for a while, it seems. We've both had a lot of stuff going on the last handful of weeks. So I know I've been on the road, off the road, and doing all kinds of stuff, and I'm sure you have been too. So let's hear it. What's been going on?
You're right. We haven't talked much. So I think the last time we had like a real conversation, like about whatever we wanted, was was probably like the end of February. And then I went to NRMCA and was gone for that week. And then you were gone the next week. You actually
Mm-hmm.
went to Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And was skeptical about this trip from the moment you announced it. So for the people that don't know, we was enticed by his wife to go to Hawaii. And you might be thinking, what do you mean enticed? Who has to entice somebody to go to Hawaii? Well, Joey and I, we are beach people. We don't want to go sit on a beach and stare at a wave and get sand in our shorts. Nothing about that is fun. You're talking about flying halfway across the world with two kids under 5? No, thank you. Don't want to be any part of that. Well, his wife wanted to go. They had some family friends that were going to go on this vacation, and let's all of our families go together and have a great time. And Joey said no. I'm not going on that. That sounds like the opposite of a vacation. I want nothing to do with it. So Kristen, her infinite wisdom, said, Joey, if you go with me on this trip, I will let you turkey hunt the entire time. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to come to a single family nothing. I'll pretend you're not even there. You'll help me on the trip there. You'll help me on the trip back. But as far as I'm concerned, this is two different trips. You're turkey hunting. I am on a beach vacation with the kids and our friends. I said, Joey, that's a trap. Do not walk into that trap. You're gonna be miserable. You're gonna want to go hunting. She's gonna wonder by the second day why you're not there on the beach with the family. And I'm here to get what's owed to me. Tell me how terrible your vacation was.
It was actually very, very awesome on both sides of the coin there. My trip was awesome. It was type 2 fun. It's fun to talk about. It sucked at the time because if you've ever been to the big island of Hawaii, or if you know anything about the big island of Hawaii, it is a giant mountain. It is a 13,000-foot elevation mountain. And so we were turkey hunting at around 9,000 feet.
Whoa. If you haven't been 9,000 feet up, the air starts to get a little thin.
Yep.
9,000 feet up.
You can feel it. So, the hunting, I won't bore y'all with the hunting details, but hunting was pretty tough for us. But we got there on Saturday, started hunting Sunday. By Wednesday and Thursday, Jason and I each had a turkey. So it was hard earned, but we each got our turkey. Now, as far as how it was with the wife, kids, there were 11 of us total in this Airbnb that we rented. There were 3 kids. The oldest one was 5. Their son, Becca and Jason's son, he's like 9 months older than Jolene. Jolene will be 5 in August. So there were 3, 4, and 2-year-olds, and the rest of them were adults. And so they had a lot of help with the kids, which was good. And my wife assured me, just like Paul said, that I could treat it like a hunting trip. She didn't care if she didn't see me from the time we landed until we took off. And I'll give her credit, she held to her terms. The only thing I was required to be at was the luau on Sunday night. That was the only thing I had to be present for. Other than that, like Jason and I, we would get up at 3 o'clock every morning. We were out the door by 3:30, and we did not return home until 9 o'clock at night. Like, we hunted hard, hard, hard. And there was never any grief. No, when are you going to be home? No, nothing. Like, they ate meals without us. I told them, do not wait on us for anything because there's no telling what could happen. We got a flat tire on like day 2 of the hunt. So had to go all the way back to the airport, exchange trucks, and do all that at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So it was good though. Everybody had a great time. No stress, nothing like that. The only stressful part, everybody that knows, Parker Boone has his heart thing going on, and so he doesn't really do well at elevation. Well, he did fine all around, the coast, obviously, because you're at sea level, like literally at sea level. And so they went to drive across the island one day to go somewhere, and they had to drive across part of the mountain. And so I think they got up to like 6,000 something feet, and dude became like unresponsive. Like he was conscious, like he was still breathing. It was just like he was zoned out. Lights weren't on. Started turning a little bit blue, and of course, wife started freaking out, but got back down, to lower than 1,000 something feet elevation. Everything was fine. So that was the only like stressful part of the entire trip. Everything else was fine. And Parker Boone was fine. Like once he got back down, he was totally back to normal, regular kid. But it was a good trip. They were also talking about what other trips of this nature that we could take. And so for the future, so we got to looking. I don't know what the next one's going to be, but we started looking at other places to take a family, and I can go hunt for the week. So we'll see where this idea takes us next.
I'm glad the first one worked out because for those of you that just don't think I'm just putting his wife on blast on a national podcast here, I actually saw Krista back in October when these details were being finalized, and I told her to her face in person, this is not going to end well. It's not going to end well for Joey. It's not going to end well for me as your friend.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't want to see just this whole experience go up in a ball of flames. So everyone should know that when you guys got back from this vacation, I think you'd been back for 48 hours, and I was already getting text messages from your wife telling me how great she was for actually letting you go.
And that's probably exactly why it went so smoothly. Like she has too much pride to admit that somebody else was right.
Well, you're welcome.
So yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. We'll remember that for the next trip we take.
Yeah, yeah, call her out again. Don't you worry. Speaking of speaking of people who need to, swallow their pride or say they're sorry or whatever, what's going on at the University of Tennessee and Nico, whatever his last name is, your quarterback? For the people who aren't paying attention, we're recording this on Monday, April 14th. And this past weekend, while I was trying to focus on the Masters, my entire timeline on the internet was full of the Tennessee Volunteers quarterback suddenly is not with the program. Joey, what is going on over there?
Well, instead of a coaching carousel, I guess we're going to have a quarterback carousel this year. But I guess from what I've heard, and I haven't followed much about it, honestly, this past weekend was opening weekend of turkey season for us. So I haven't really been on social media that much. But from what I've gathered, what little bit I've seen, uh, the Nico camp tried to negotiate for more NIL money, I guess, from the university or where it's come from. And the university just said, no, we're not paying you any more money. And so Nico left. And that's about the gist of it from what I gather. No, there may be other details, probably some things that I've gotten wrong, but
There's some juicy details. Great. I'm glad I
okay,
get
let's
to crap on your team and fill you in on all the details at the same time.
let's
It's
hear
a
it.
glorious, glorious moment for me. So your underwhelming quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
Nico, who everybody was I was also very excited for you guys when you got him. He looked like an absolute stud coming out
Mm-hmm.
of high school. Signs for a deal worth about like was it $8 million over 4 years. He's making like
Yeah, some.
yeah, something crazy. Or 4 million or 4. He's making millions of dollars. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
his first year, he made all those millions, didn't even play because he was being redshirted as a freshman. So he
Mm-hmm.
still makes all that money sitting on the bench. Comes in, really doesn't play that well. Most of his touchdowns and all of his yardages were against the lower tier schools.
Yep.
He had 9 touchdowns against SEC competition, and 4 of those were against Vanderbilt. The last play of the Arkansas game last year, time was running down. He just ran out of bounds. So, it's at some point you're looking at this investment you made and you're going, man, he's got all the tools, but he can't play quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out you guys still had a really good season last year, and you went to the college football playoffs. And it turns out that Nico got a couple of his buddies on the team together, and they were going to hold out in the college football championship. And it's like, hey, you got to pay us more money because we agreed to a 12, 13 game season. But you know what? Now we're in the playoffs because they could easily be 13, 14, 15 games. Well, you're not paying me for 15 games. You're paying me for 12 games.
Mhm.
we're gonna hold out. You're gonna have to pay me." And the University of Tennessee said, "No, get your butt in the locker room and go win us a football game." So
Mhm.
Tennessee won that one. Well, come springtime, Nico's dad wants more money. Tennessee's still saying no, and they decide they're gonna shop the kid around without officially entering the transfer portal. And the way that the University of Tennessee allegedly, the way they figured this out is Dan Lanning, the head coach at Oregon, called Josh Heupel and said, "Hey, your boy's being shopped by his dad, not by his official reps or anybody else. Dude's
Mhm.
dad is making calls." This ends up in the hands of a reporter from a company called On3. On3
Mhm.
makes the report, blows the story wide open. Nico's dad says the guy's a bum. None of this is true. Next thing you know, Nico's not showing up to practice, doesn't show up to the spring game, off the team. The reporter gets paid handsomely by his company. They gave him a big raise today for having the scoop of the century. And now we all just wait and see, is Nico even going to land anywhere? Is he going to even make
Mhm.
the money that he was making at Tennessee? Did Tennessee do the right thing? And my question is actually for the Tennessee fans. I haven't seen a single Tennessee fan take the side of the kid, which is crazy, which is crazy. Because we don't even know if it was the kid's idea. It could have been the dad's idea. It
Mhm.
could have been, we have no idea what's going on, but I don't see a single fan who's like, yeah, we should have paid him. They're all like, no, like, you agreed to something. Like, Tennessee's got to have a way. There's got to be a line where the university
Mhm.
says no. And I
Yep.
think we found it.
Yeah. No, that I haven't found a Tennessee fan yet that is upset about what has happened. I mean, and I think on one side of things, yeah, like if he was going to be our starting quarterback, like before we knew all of the stuff that you just told me about, we're like, okay, that was his first year as a starter. I mean, we could probably, look over a couple, some of the things that he's done. Okay, first year, he can get better over the spring and the summer, and he'll be a lot better next fall. I think it's what a lot of people were thinking. But now, since all this has come out, we're like, okay, never mind. I mean, we'll just, if you're going to be like that, I mean, we don't care. Like, bye. You made a commitment. And I think that's one thing that the NIL, one thing I haven't liked about the NIL. So, on one side, yes, I think someone with talent should be able to profit from those talents in some way, shape, or form, be it, sponsorships or through what are like doing local commercials or any kind of marketing, selling your jerseys, selling signatures, whatever. Where I would draw the line is when you start getting paid by the university. Like if you get a W-2 from the University of Tennessee, you're just a semi-professional football player at that point. And that was the major line that separated college and NFL. Like the college kids, they weren't employed by the university. It was a privilege to go there. Like you got a scholarship, and if you were on a big team like Tennessee back in the day, or Alabama, or any of these big giant schools, you could market yourself and take that next step to the NFL. But I don't know. It's like it lost a lot of its luster, I guess, when kids started getting paid by the universities. That part I just didn't, it never really sat right with me. I don't care if you get paid by anybody else, third party, for doing whatever because you're the starting quarterback of whatever university. I do not care. But I just didn't like kids getting paid by the universities.
Yeah, I go every which way on it.
Uh-huh.
I see the arguments on both sides. Number one, if you have value in the marketplace, for someone to tell you you can't earn that money in the marketplace just
Uh-huh.
seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
And so the fact that the kids weren't getting paid anything at all from anybody,
Uh-huh.
just that was always so strange. It's so strange. I couldn't imagine. And I don't even get upset that they have like contracts fully guaranteed before they even play it down. That doesn't bother me either because
Uh-huh.
the way I look at it is if I were to hire somebody to join our team, well, I'm going based on past performance and hoping that translate into future performance that benefits our
Uh-huh.
organization. It's the same thing for them. They're
Uh-huh.
looking at they're looking at the same metric, just their metrics, but looking for the same trend. So, you don't know if a new hire is going to work out. You don't know if a new football player is going to work out. So I don't really begrudge a lot of it. What's so strange to me is there's so much money involved and
Mhm.
there's no rules. There's no rules. You can pay anybody any amount. You can structure it in any way. You could do the deal
Mhm.
with their dad. You could do it with them. You could do it with an agent. You could do it. There's no rules. How, does he have to pay any of that money back? There's no rules. There's
Mhm.
there's
Right.
no rules. And I feel bad. Actually, the people I've never thought I'd ever say this in my life. People I end up feeling bad for are the head coaches who are trying to run an organization, trying to run a program, trying to coach ball, and they're dealing with this day in, day out on the recruiting trail, having to re-recruit their own players. So look,
Mhm.
Alabama is not immune to this either. We had a five-star defensive back who, in fact, had like a podcast. They built like a whole podcast studio for these kids to like make their own podcasts in. And he's doing these podcasts, loves Bama, actually grew up next to my hometown and was a five-star, awesome kid, good human, good player. Decides he wants to play wide receiver and wants more money and he's just going to leave and put himself in the transfer portal. I mean, this guy was like the ambassador, one of the ambassadors for Alabama football, especially as a young guy. And now he's in the transfer portal. So we had to go re-recruit him, tell him to stay, gave him whatever he wanted. Now he's a wide receiver. So I mean,
Huh.
it's not like we're immune to it. It's just the Nico fallout just seems so much more insane. And by the way, if you're gonna piss off a fan base, could you choose? I mean, the Vol fan base, really? That's the one you're gonna try and pick a fight with?
We keep our torches and pitchforks at the ready, man. One day that will never leave my memory is the day that we tried to hire Greg Schiano.
Oh
He
my
was like,
gosh.
and the masses came together in unison and prevented that man from getting hired. Like, I think they hired him that morning and he was gone by lunch. One of them kind of days. Like, I will never forget that because, it just means more down here. And yeah, man, college football is just serious. You can't just do stuff like that. We, uh, we hold people to a lot of accountability. And, it's not like, you know, 20, 30 years ago when somebody came on as a freshman, they graduated. I mean, I don't really remember what the transfer situation was like, 20 to 30 years ago, but it wasn't, you couldn't go somewhere different every year or multiple places in a year.
No, no, no. You couldn't. And you could actually you had to sit out a year. That's what the rule is. You could transfer, but just sit out a year. There is a rule in the SEC though. If you're an SEC quarterback, you cannot transfer to another SEC school. I think that's the rule.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure that's right. At least not like the first year out. So
Right.
I think when Nico transfers, it won't be to an SEC school. He'll have to go somewhere
So if he
else.
wants to come back to an SEC school, let's say if he does have that eligibility, he'll have, so he transfers from Tennessee to non-SEC, but he can then transfer back into the SEC.
I mean, I didn't write the rule book, but I think that's right.
Yeah,
So don't quote me on that, but I think I'm pretty right.
that sounds right.
Well, that's probably a good deal. You don't want people uh, you know, saying, "Hey, I got the playbook in my head for
Right.
Tennessee. I'm gonna go to Alabama and I'll just sit with the defensive coordinator for a while and
Mm-hmm.
hand over everything I know." Speaking of people talking, you were on some jobs recently, and you're finding out that folks are still having trouble with well cement. And we've had a bunch of cement guys here on the show in the past 6 months, and this is not shaded any of them. In fact, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know that any of them even work for the supplier that is not going to be named here. But the fact that this is still a thing 3 years after the rollout of 1L, and people are still having some of the
Mm-hmm.
same old problem. What were you seeing out in the field?
So yeah, we won't mention company names, individual names. I won't even say the state that I was in. We just don't like to tell people's business on here. But the company that we're referring to, they were having issues with pumpability, finishability, bleeding or the lack of bleed water from the slab. I forget what all other issues they were having. Like as far as finishability, the surface of the concrete, especially on these straight cement mixes. When we went and tested with them, we did 20 yards with a mock slab in the yard. We did two controls and two with Actigel just as a drop in. One mix was straight cement, 1L. The other mix was a blend with fly ash. I can't remember if it was 80/20. It may have been 80/20 cement to fly ash. And the straight cement mix, it would tear almost like a man sand mix. I remember seeing that.
Jeez.
And the theory from the ready mix producer was that they cement company had increased the amount of limestone in the mix, and it was just a lot more coarse grade cement than it used to be.
You mean even more so than 3 years ago when they first made the switch over, or
Yes, because this particular company was one of those that they had done their homework, before the quote unquote official release. And so they had a lot of things figured out at the beginning. They had a smooth transition from what I've heard from type 1.2 to 1L. That transition was not that bad. But fast forward to here recently, they started having all these performance issues. Before, most of the issues that I heard about at least was, strength and hardened concrete issues. And they were having a lot of plastic concrete issues, performance issues. And so that's when they called us and was looking for a remedy in Actigel. And I took videos of it, of all the mixes, of the 4 mixes that we tried in the yard. And there was a significant difference, even in the straight cement, the fly ash mix. Fly ash helped a lot, and the Actigel helped a lot. Not to turn this into an infomercial, but
I'm
Actigel.
surprised that I mean, hey, that surprises me. I'm actually curious to hear because I don't think we've talked about I don't think we've actually talked about this offline, so we're kinda
Uh-uh.
having this discussion in real time. So, sorry for the infomercial. Wait a minute, what hap that so it was tearing,
Mhm.
when it was straight cement, when it had the flash, did a little better, and then when you put Dactyl in, what happened?
I mean, it did what Actigel does. It made the mix creamier. It just alleviated a lot of those issues. It brought a lot of paste up to the surface when they were floating it. Come out of the chute really nice. It looked pretty rocky without the Actigel in it. It just looked like a really rocky mix, and it wasn't like the paste was running off of the aggregate or anything. There wasn't much like segregation, and that the mix was too loose or whatever. I mean, it was like a 3-inch slump mix, so it was a nice average mix. But yeah, the Actigel just kind of brought it to life and just made finishing a lot better. So after that, the day after that, we tested it out in the field with one of their top customers, and going to send it through the pump. They were going to do about 90 yards worth of residential slabs with it, and they tested the first 90 yards. I forget how many yards this crew had ordered for the day, but it was, a couple hundred at least. But they just tested the first 90. And after that 90-yard mark and it went back to their regular mix, they were like, whoa, what happened? Where's the other stuff that, you had for us this morning that did so well? And so the crew called the concrete company back, and they're like, I don't know what you did to that first 90 yards, but we need more of it and we want it right now. But that's one of the first times that I'd heard about the performance issues from 1L. And I'm kind of wondering if anybody else out there, if anybody's listening and you're kind of hearing the same thing, or just keep an eye out. I'd just like to know if it's going to be more widespread or if this was kind of a local thing.
Yeah, look forward to hearing that. Shocked to me, but glad that you're able to help those guys out and give them a good mix.
Well, it's good catching up with you. Hopefully, it's not like 3 months longer until we do another one of these.
Yeah, it's pretty rough having this much of a break on the current events segments, but I think it'll be a little bit more smooth sailing here for the next couple months.
Yeah, man. Well, next episode, we're going to have interviews again. So we'll have people on here that you actually want to hear about instead of us. And hopefully, by the time that we do this again, there'll be no more catastrophic events from Rocky Top.
Oh my gosh. Well, we can only pray that it's as entertaining as the last one. So after you're hearing this, so the episode before this would be Jennifer, and the one after this is Rami, both
Mhm.
full, just packed full of information. Thanks, by the way, for handling that interview with Jennifer. I really appreciate that. Looking forward to hearing it when it drops.
Yep, it was a good one. It was a good one.
All right, man. Well, thanks for everybody for listening. Joey, thanks for all your hard work on this, man.
Absolutely. Catch you guys later.